Sometimes it's not the enemy that kills a pilot, but his relationship with the sky itself. And that relationship can push him to both his highest peak and his lowest point. Late 1944, Pacific Theater. A meeting is underway inside a U.S. Army Air Force's command center. High-ranking officers sit around the table, all focused on the same name, Richard Bong. At that moment, Bong is America's most successful fighter pilot. 40 confirmed aerial victories. He has long surpassed Eddie Rickenbacker's World War I record of 26, a Medal of Honor recipient, the face of propaganda posters, and a growing problem for his commanders, because Bong refuses to stop flying. Time and again, the commanders tell him the same thing. Enough is enough. Come home. We have other plans for you. And every time, Bong gives the same answer. If I don't fly, others will fall. And this is where a critical question emerges. When does a pilot become too valuable? When should he no longer be allowed in the sky? And why would a man choose to risk his life over and over again? You'll find the answers to those questions later in the video. Richard Bong's story is not simply a tale of heroism in the air. It is the story of a man's relationship with war, and that relationship both made him a legend and ultimately destroyed him. You'll soon see that Bong's success didn't come from lightning-fast reflexes, but from patience. His courage wasn't expressed through flashy maneuvers, but through calculated risk. And what truly set him apart wasn't just shooting down 40 enemy aircraft. Richard Bong grew up in Poplar, a small town in Wisconsin. He was the eldest of 9 children. His father was a Swedish immigrant, his mother American. An ordinary family, an ordinary life. But there was something inside Bong that wanted to fly. As a child, he watched airplanes and dreamed. And even then, he knew that one day he would be up in that sky. In 1941, he enlisted as a pilot candidate in the U.S. Army Air Corps. During training, it quickly became clear that he was different. His reflexes were sharp, but what truly set him apart was his calmness. He didn't panic. He didn't rush. He could wait. And in war, the pilot who knows how to wait is often the one who survives. In 1942, he was sent to the Pacific. His assignment? New Guinea, one of the harshest fronts of the Pacific War. Endless island-to-island air battles, exhausting sorties. The same sky day after day, the same enemies every time. Japanese pilots were experienced, aggressive, and unafraid of death. For American pilots, this front was not only a physical fight, but a psychological one. Bong flew the P-38 Lightning. It was well suited for the Pacific. Its twin engines gave it long range and strong performance at high altitude. But it was also a large aircraft, and that size came with drawbacks. It wasn't as agile as the Japanese Zero. It had no advantage in close dogfights. But Bong understood his aircraft's limits, and he fought within them. His tactics were never flashy. He didn't dive recklessly. He avoided unnecessary risks. His style was simple: patience. He waited. He kept his distance. He waited for the right moment, and when he fired, he rarely missed. Other pilots used to say, "Bong doesn't fight, he hunts." Life in New Guinea followed a relentless routine. Every morning he took off into the same sky. Every day he faced the same Japanese pilots. Every evening he returned, if he was lucky. Wasn't it almost like a 9-to-5 job? These repeated flights made him more experienced, more controlled, more composed. The most dangerous time for any pilot is the first few sorties. Inexperience, fear, and chaos combine, and everything happens too fast. But Bong had already passed that phase. The sky now felt familiar, almost like home. As the victories accumulated, something began to change. Bong was no longer just a pilot, he was becoming a symbol. 10 victories, then 20, then 30. Each success made headlines in the American press. Phrases like, "America's Ace of Aces," filled newspapers. Propaganda posters were printed. Bong had become a hero. But heroism is rarely uncomplicated. Because to the commanders, Bong was no longer just a man, in a cockpit. He was an asset, a symbol that kept morale high. And if Bong were lost, it wouldn't just be the loss of a pilot. It would be a blow to the spirit of the entire front. So they told him again and again, "Come home." But Bong didn't listen. Or perhaps he didn't want to. For someone whose life was defined by the sky and by flying, these were not orders he wanted to accept. Put yourself in Bong's position. You're famous. Records have been broken. You're a national hero. Yet every morning you climb into the cockpit, the danger is exactly the same. The same Japanese pilots are still out there. And you know that if you don't fly today, tomorrow may be even harder for the men who remain. So what would you do? Return home as a hero, or keep flying in pursuit of something more? Bong's answer was clear. He kept flying. In the Solomon Islands around Guadalcanal, Japanese pilots were still highly skilled. Mistakes were never forgiven. One wrong move meant death. But Bong survived there as well because he had learned how to avoid mistakes. Then came the Philippine campaign. This was the period of Bong's greatest success, but it was also the most dangerous. There was nothing left to prove. The record had already been shattered, and yet Bong was still flying. Now the commanders were genuinely alarmed. "What happens if we lose Bong?" they asked. Finally, a direct order was issued. "You will no longer fly. You are returning to the United States." For the first time, Bong obeyed, but he did so reluctantly. Now consider this. Why would a man struggle so deeply to leave the sky? Why was it so hard for him to walk away? Perhaps the answer is simple. For Bong, the sky was more than a battlefield. It was where he found himself. It was where he understood who he was. And leaving, it meant leaving a part of himself behind. The sky over the Philippines looked the same as ever. Blue, calm, deceptive. And Bong knew better than anyone that this calm could break at any second. It was late 1944. Bong was closing in on his 40th victory. A number that would enter history, the highest number of aerial victories ever achieved by an American pilot. But for Bong, it was just a number. What mattered was being in the sky. One morning he took off again. The engines of his P-38 Lightning roared. The controls felt familiar. Everything seemed normal. But this time was different. His commanders were watching closely. Everyone knew this would be one of Bong's final combat flights. Then a Japanese aircraft appeared, a Mitsubishi A6M0, fast, agile, deadly. But Bong felt no fear. He had faced this plane countless times before. He knew how it turned. He knew how its pilots thought. He kept his distance. He didn't rush. The Zero closed in and began to maneuver. Bong waited. And at exactly the right moment, he pulled the trigger. The rounds struck home. Smoke poured from the Zero as it rolled over and began to fall toward the sea. Another victory. But Bong didn't celebrate. He sat quietly in the cockpit, watching the aircraft disappear below. And perhaps in that moment, a single thought crossed his mind. When will I be here again? When he returned and landed at the base, congratulations poured in from every direction. A record had been broken. History had been made. But Bong looked exhausted, because he already knew this flight was his last. The commanders were now unequivocal. "Bong, you're going home. Your mission is over." And this time, he didn't argue. Maybe he was tired. Maybe the sky no longer felt the same. Or maybe he had finally learned when to stop. But here's the part that truly matters. Richard Bong never really left the sky. In early 1945, Richard Bong returned to America. He was welcomed as a war hero, awarded the Medal of Honor, and celebrated by the press. He married his sweetheart, Marjorie Vattendahl. A normal life seemed ready to begin. The war was behind him. The sky was supposed to be behind him as well, but Bong could not leave the sky behind. After the war, he became a test pilot. The US Army was preparing to introduce a new generation of aircraft, the jet age. The Lockheed P-80 Shooting Star. Faster, more advanced, a symbol of a new era. And Bong wanted to be part of it. On August 6, 1945, Bong was test flying a P-80 over Burbank, California. The takeoff was routine. Everything appeared normal. Then, moments later, the engine failed in midair. The aircraft lost control. Bong attempted to eject, but his parachute failed to deploy. And he fell. The man who had shot down 40 Japanese aircraft died in the sky after the war was already over. The irony is impossible to ignore. The day Bong died was the same day the atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima. While one of the most world-changing events in history unfolded, America's greatest fighter ace disappeared quietly from the sky. Bong's story is not simply about 40 victories. It is the story of a man's bond with the sky. That sky made him a hero, and that same sky took him away. Bong died doing what he loved most. Perhaps the most important lesson of Richard Bong's life is this: sometimes what you achieve defines who you are. And sometimes being forced to let go of it means losing a part of yourself.